Welcome to Awesome Movie Year, the podcast where we take a look back at an awesome year for movies, which is every year. My name is Josh Bell, film critic and writer, and I am joined by my co-host.
It's me, Jason Harris, comedian, filmmaker, slave to love.
Slave to Love. All right. Is that a song? Is that where you were quoting that from?
It's a great song. Dave,
I don't know that song.
Who is that?
Brian Ferry, man, after Roxy Music.
All right.
Audience, this is for you.
Slave
Oh, no. How many times have you sang on this podcast?
I'm just wondering why he chose this for this.
I don't always, I keep trying to explain this to you. They're not all connected. I just feel like a slave to love today, guys.
All
We can do
right.
a little game where you match them up. And somehow they all
Yeah,
work.
that might work for once or something like that.
Yeah. No. Let's move on from that, though.
Slave to love.
This season of Awesome Movie Year is all about the films of 2007. And in this episode, we are talking about our pick for a future cult classic, which is Edgar Wright's Hot Fuzz. And I think, Jason, this is a movie that you were really adamant about having for this episode.
I mean, I thought really we looked and it was this or Hot Rod.
Right. We did talk about Hot Rod.
Which is a fun movie and definitely strives to be something different but I thought this was the biggest cult classic of the year, and also lives on in the lore of the Cornetto trilogy with these boys and everything, you know?
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree that this is a good movie and an interesting movie to talk about. Actually, looking up info on this, I thought, does this qualify as a cult classic? Because it was a big success initially. And I think you usually think of a cult classic as a movie like Hot Rod that didn't do really well in its initial release and then kind of found an audience later. But I think we can say this is a cult classic in that the fans of it are kind of a cult. Like it engenders a very fervent fan base.
Yeah, you could see like people dressing up for a midnight screening of this.
Yeah.
And also it did attract an even bigger audience on DVD and now through streaming. But
right.
It's maybe it's them as a unit. Like it's these three stories that is, they're famous, but it's kind of like a cult trilogy.
Yeah.
Can we say?
Yeah, you could call it that. The Cornetto trilogy with Shaun of the Dead and The World's End. But yeah, this movie made $80.7 million worldwide.
What? That's way too much.
On a budget of $16 million. So yeah, let's cancel this episode. That's it. Thanks for listening to Awesome Movie Year.
We'll be back next week with Hot Rod, a cult classic.
So it was, I mean, obviously that's not Avengers money, but that's pretty good, especially given that really small budget. So it was a successful film. I think there was a high anticipation for it after Shaun of the Dead came out. Did you see this movie in the theaters?
I didn't see it in theaters. I watched it on Netflix years later, and I watched it again in preparation for this podcast, Dave.
What a good plan.
Does that sound familiar to you, Dave?
I swear I was going to, and I just didn't get around to it. But I've seen this movie many, many times.
And you and Josh, you obviously...
I also watched it in prep for the podcast.
Well,
yeah.
As you might have mentioned 100,000 times, you were already a movie reviewer in 2007.
I was indeed.
So you saw this, and did you review it?
I might have reviewed it on the radio. I was looking up. I didn't write a review of this in Las Vegas Weekly. It was someone else. But I did see it at a press screening because I was a movie critic.
Do you pass your time just looking at old reviews that you've written?
No, I was looking it up for this podcast because it was relevant. I mean, I feel like that makes total sense.
It does make total sense.
Thank you.
I would have read your review had you written about it.
I didn't. But I did see this in the theater and had seen Shaun of the Dead. Had you seen Shaun of the Dead when it came out?
I think I saw it with you.
Oh, that's possible.
In the theater because you were a movie critic.
I might have been. What year was that?
2004, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And Shaun of the Dead was really fun and did well enough to where Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg were given free rein to do whatever they wanted with their next movie. And here we are, baby.
Here we are. And it was the right choice to give them free rein. So one thing that I noticed when I was looking up reviews for this movie, which was very, very well reviewed. It has a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes. But what I didn't remember is that this movie was released in the US 4 days after the shooting at Virginia Tech. And a lot of the stuff that I found when I was looking up not only reviews, but just general commentary about this movie at the time was about whether this was inappropriate to be released at that time, which I don't even remember that.
let's credit the U.S. lawmakers who have done such a good job since then of, gun reform and gun control. And now we don't have these mass shootings in the U.S. anymore. And it's good because it's clear that they all care more about human lives than about gun lobbyists. And really good people out there, really good people running this country.
Yeah. And it's all thanks to Hot Fuzz.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I regret bringing that up. Let's talk about some reviews of this movie. Dana Stevens in Slate said, Hot Fuzz is like an Agatha Christie novel directed by Michael Bay and adapted for the screen by P.G. Wodehouse. The script is chock-a-block with absurd puns that somehow become funnier the more you think about them. Wright and Pegg don't care if they make you laugh with sight gags, verbal wit, pratfalls, or sheer stupidity. They just want to make you laugh. And even when they don't succeed, the density of jokes is such that there's always a good one just around the corner. But the screenplay doesn't coast lazily from laugh to laugh, like the loose bundles of skits that too often pass as comedy statesize. Ridiculous as Angel and Danny are, we truly care about their budding friendship, not least because of the chemistry between Pegg and his real-life buddy Nick Frost, who riff off each other like old vaudevillians.
I didn't care about their friendship. I like this movie, but I didn't care if they were friends or enemies. I just liked the movie. So.
I mean, yeah, it's not like a deep emotional journey, but I felt like the fact that they had that dynamic is part of what makes the movie work. You didn't feel that way?
No, it definitely does. I was reading that in one of the original drafts. Did you see how long this movie took to write?
I did not.
It's 18 months.
Yeah.
And the impetus was that there was no real British cop film history.
Right.
And so they wrote it and then rewrote it. And then they watched 138 different cop films like over time to kind of go through all the tropes, which they use plenty of.
Yeah. That was good use of research.
Yeah. And they interviewed over 50 police officers, bobbies in England. I did that research. But
excellent.
But in one of the original drafts, there was a love interest for Simon Pegg's character, Victoria, and they cut the love interest and just gave a lot of her dialogue to Nick Frost, and they didn't change any of it. So there's that.
I think that really works. Like, I'm surprised to hear you say that wasn't something that drew you in this movie.
I mean, I think their buddy relationship works better in Shaun of the Dead, but like it was fine in this. I just think like that wasn't one of the elements where I was like, oh man, it's Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor all over again or something like that. Huh. I just picked a buddy duo
that's an iconic comedy duo, made a bunch of movies together. Yeah, I thought we can get into this more later, but I really liked that central relationship. So Anne Hornaday in the Washington Post said, made by the same team responsible for the hilarious zombie satire Shaun of the Dead, with the same tongues in the same cheeks, Hot Fuzz skewers yet another Hollywood genre, the action flick, at its most ludicrously macho, macro-budgeted, and overhyped. Written and directed by Edgar Wright, starring Nick Frost and co-writer Simon Pegg, Hot Fuzz may go for a few too many style points and suffer from the overlong running times that vex so many recent tushy tinglers, but it delivers the same silly laughs as Shaun of the Dead with the same winking sophistication. It's dumb like a London fox.
I agree. It could have been 15 minutes shorter. I think Tushy Tinglers is a different genre altogether that we're not getting into on this podcast.
Yeah, that was an odd turn of phrase. I assume she means movies that make you sit in your seat for a long time, but I wasn't entirely sure what that was referring to.
It's 2 hours. So that's not
it did feel too long to me.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 hours is certainly not as long as a lot of movies, but for a movie like this, I feel like it probably doesn't need to be that long.
It's still Edgar Wright's longest movie, I think. Right?
Oh, is it?
I feel like Josh's review of the upcoming The Irishman should include Tushy Taylor.
Yeah, I definitely need to quote that. And sorry, did you have something there, Jason?
No, it's going to be horrible.
Another joke about tushy tingling?
Yeah, it's not a good one.
All right,
let's let it go.
Let's move on from that. Richard Corliss in Time magazine called it the best, surely the smartest English language movie of the year to date. And also said, one big diff between this movie and the Hollywood product it either parodies, the cop buddy action pics, or resembles, the current wave of Stiller, Farrell, Vaughn, Wilson, slob buddy comedies, is that Wright is an actual filmmaker. His acute sense of visual wit, rich but not assaultive, puts me in mind of Buster Keaton's classic silent farces. To write, the movie screen offers a smorgasbord of small, savory gags to be sampled by the attentive viewer. It's not a grapefruit pushed in your face. So other than his also strange turn of phrase there, I feel like he has a good point. That one thing that struck me about watching this movie again is that it is really accomplished filmmaking. It's not just here's some funny stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's almost every Edgar Wright movie at this point in time.
Yeah, I agree with you. I guess I was thinking of that as sort of a progression for him. And I think of Baby Driver and Scott Pilgrim as these movies that are just visually incredibly like elaborate and sophisticated. And I think I had this idea that these early movies were more basic, but that's really not true.
Yeah, and in a way, I think Baby Driver is less than these because of the relationships and the characters. I felt like that's all style.
Yeah.
It's all sizzle, baby, no steak. I want that steak. What was the first line of that? He said it was
the best, surely the smartest English language movie of the year to date. Of course, this movie came out in April of that year, though.
There were some good British movies that came out that year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's saying British or American, English language movie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He liked it a lot.
Aren't you something, Richard Corliss?
He is indeed. Yeah. I mean, this movie, it was very, very well reviewed. I was sort of surprised looking back to see if it had gotten any major awards, and it didn't.
Empire magazine ranked it the 50th best British movie of all time in 2016 on their list of 100 greatest British movies.
I mean, that's something, but I was expecting like maybe it had gotten a Golden Globe nomination for best comedy or something like that, and it didn't get anything on that level, which is sort of surprising to me.
I can see that, but they got millions of bucks, so
they did, and a cult following, as we have established.
What more do you want?
I did, yeah, and an episode of Awesome Movie Year, which is really the highest honor of all.
At least in our eyes.
Yes. Any other background info that you found interesting?
Like we talked about, the DVDs did 33 million in DVD sales, so pretty good there.
Yeah.
We know the relationship between these three gents with First Space, their British TV show. Did you ever watch that?
I haven't. I feel like it's something I should catch up on, but I've never seen it.
Maybe we should watch it together.
Yeah.
Bro down on Space.
All right. That sounds fun.
You ever see it, Dave?
I've always wanted to. No.
You're not invited.
Nah.
Yeah, and Olivia Colman, I think, is she on that? No, I'm confusing that with Peep Show.
But she's in this,
She is in this, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then the other big background piece is that so much of this was based on the Edgar Wright student film, Dead Right.
Have you seen that?
No, but I did notice it was on YouTube today, so I might watch it. And they shot this in Edgar Wright's hometown. So there's a lot of history going on here, and it just seemed like they had so much fun making this movie.
Yeah, I mean, despite this movie being this over-the-top cop movie parody, it does seem like it's kind of a personal thing for all of them, for Edgar Wright and for Simon Pegg and Nick Frost as well, with the friendship and everything there. So
now, have you ever had Cornetto ice cream?
I have not. Do they even sell it in the U.S.?
I don't know. Dave, have you ever had it?
I've never had it. I don't think they do. I think it's a British thing.
Right. They keep mentioning the Cornetto trilogy, if we haven't explained, named after the Cornetto ice cream. Very popular in Europe, perhaps. It's an Italian ice cream. And Shaun of the Dead, they reference the strawberry ice cream because of all the blood and gore. This one is the original. I think it's a vanilla flavor, but there's the blue wrapper. So the police in The World's End, they use mint chocolate chip because of the
green aliens.
Yeah.
I feel like it's been a while since I saw The World's End, but I feel like the ice cream plays a larger role in that movie, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, we should maybe watch it. I haven't seen that or Shaun of the Dead again recently.
Yeah, neither have I, but we have seen Hot Fuzz. So let's take a break and come back and talk more about our thoughts on Hot Fuzz.
Today's episode is sponsored by the Golden Tiki, recently named one of the top tiki bars in the United States by the Food Network, and also one of the top 10 best nightlife destinations in Las Vegas by USA Today. They've got great rum, mixed drinks, and of course the Dole Whip. They've got theme nights, DJs, all kinds of fun stuff, including Al and Bud's Oasis, who are two robotic parrots that put on a great show every hour on the hour. So next time you're in Las Vegas, make sure to check out the Golden Tiki on Spring Mountain.
Welcome back to Awesome Movie Year. In this episode of our season on the films of 2007, we're talking about the future cult classic and now current cult classic, Hot Fuzz.
Is it both a current and future cult
Well, it was a
classic?
future cult classic in 2007, and it is a current cult classic in 2019. Isn't that how that works?
Yeah, and it'll probably still be a future cult classic because next year in 2020 it'll still be a cult classic.
That is so true.
So
Amazing how time works, isn't
it's
it?
not a flat object.
A flat circle?
Yeah, there we go. Matthew McConaughey was right in the first season of that show.
True Detective.
That's the one.
Yeah. Which is also about cops,
Yeah.
much like Hot Fuzz, which stars Simon Pegg as a super cop, I guess we would call him.
Yeah, we get that great intro montage, which is very Edgar Wright-ish, which is good because he directed the film. So
Not surprising that that's the
yeah,
style it
but
uses.
it's, I'm so Nicholas Angel. I completed the academy in this long, and we're seeing all these stylized shots of him kicking ass and everything. He is a super cop, and I
Right.
arrested 400% more than everyone else in London. Yeah, you get to see all that fun stuff.
Yeah, which I thought was funny because we think of Simon Pegg. I mean, at this point, people had mainly just seen him in Shaun of the Dead, where he plays kind of this schlubbish loser. And I feel like even after this, especially in movies that he went on to do without Edgar Wright, he's usually kind of the nerdy, shy guy. And so I was sort of surprised and had forgotten that in this movie, his character is basically like Bruce Willis.
Yeah, he is. And it makes sense for this part. So I think it's fun.
Yeah,
it works.
yeah. It worked, and he does a good job of it.
Yeah.
And the thing is that Nicholas Angel does too good of a job, and it makes everyone look bad. So he's packed off to this sleepy village of Sandford, where he believes that no crime will be occurring. And of course, he's wrong.
There's many, many crimes occurring in this quaint hamlet known as Sandford, Josh. So many crimes. The police can't even keep track, nor do they try to.
Right. There's a conspiracy. We're kind of getting to the end here. But what first happens is that there's a lot of murders that are passed off as accidents. And Nicholas Angel decides to investigate further, and he uncovers this grand conspiracy with the help of his overeager partner. Is it Butterman? Butterman?
Danny Butterman.
Yes.
Which Nick Frost said he'd only do the movie if he could name his character. And that's what he came up with.
It was a good
Butterman.
name. It was a good name. I think it fits the character. And he's the overeager small town cop who is not a super cop, but has watched a lot of action movies.
Yeah, I didn't get him as overeager. At that point, I think he becomes overeager when he gets a little support. But at first, I just think he's like, I'm doing this because daddy told me I could do it type thing. Because his dad is the police inspector chief.
Yes, he is.
Played by Jim Broadbent.
Right. There's so many good British actors in this movie. I feel like maybe when I first saw it, I wasn't as familiar with all these people. And in the beginning sequence where Nicholas Angel gets booted from the London Police Department and every one of his supervisors, it's like, oh, it's Steve Coogan. Hey, it's Martin Freeman. Hey, it's Bill Nighy.
Right. Yeah, there are. So in the trilogy, they use Martin Freeman, Bill Nighy, Rafe Spall. Do you know who that is?
He plays one of the two detectives in Sandford in this. Him and Paddy Considine are the two detectives.
Who I love, Paddy Considine. In America, one of my favorite movies. You don't like it? Let's move on.
That is true.
Julia Deakin, Patricia Franklin, and Garth Jennings. So that's like their little company that they've used in all three of them.
Yeah.
And not just that, like you mentioned, Coogan. There's so many uncredited people in this film. Did you look that up?
I did. Yeah. Cate Blanchett plays Nicholas Angel's girlfriend in the beginning of the movie who dumps him because he's too dedicated to his job. And she does her entire part covered nearly completely
really
except
funny.
for her eyes. Yeah. It's a very amusing bit where he keeps mistaking other people for her because she's a crime scene investigator and everyone's got these like hazmat type suits on. And Peter Jackson plays a homicidal Santa Claus.
Yeah, a lot of director probably friends. Edgar Wright has his own cameo. Peter Jackson, Joe Cornish, and and now Stephen Merchant, director Stephen Merchant.
Yes, director of Fighting with My Family,
starring Nick Frost.
That is true. Yes. Yeah.
There you go.
And thank goodness we got a wrestling reference in here again, because that's what we need in every podcast. Jason sings, references wrestling.
You're just so incorrect on this one. This one actually had a relationship value to this film.
That is true. It was far more relevant than any other reference.
Yeah. So stop being so smug about this wonderful reference that I've made. Dave, note up Josh Smug at this point in
Yeah.
time.
What is that note for?
Put the time code there. Yeah.
I just want it noted, Dave. I just want it noted.
Yeah, Stephen Merchant is another great British actor who shows up in a small part here. Did you have what other cameos were there? I probably feel like I might forget one of them.
Well, yeah, Joe Cornish, who, the director, and Edgar Wright plays his stock boy, which he used to play in real life.
Yes, yeah, in his real hometown.
Yeah, those were the ones I wrote down. And then all the people in the Neighborhood Watch Alliance are all known action movie actors, which is kind of fun that they did that. So.
Right. Led by, of course, Timothy Dalton, former James Bond, as the owner of the local supermarket.
And how much fun is Timothy Dalton having in this movie? He's so good.
He might be my favorite part of the movie.
I agree. He's like, you could see him just relishing every scene. Like, he's been waiting for someone to write him this part, for years. He's just so great in it.
There's a still that goes around the internet of him standing in front of his picture.
I love that.
Yes.
I love that so much.
Yeah. So he's in his office and there's a picture of him on the wall with this smug, almost Josh-like smile on his face. And, he stands right next to it with the same smile on his face. I noted that shot down when watching it. It's great.
There's so many great background details. In that office, too, there's a part where when he is smugly telling Nicholas Angel about all the ways that his theory about the crime are wrong, and he mentions teaching a life drawing class, and on the wall there is a life drawing that's clearly from this class.
That's hilarious.
Yes.
You're right. There was a lot of that stuff and a lot of like weird stuff, like Nick Frost's whole movie collection is like Edgar Wright and his brother, all their movies. And there's one scene where in the supermarket, I think, or in one of the stores, where maybe the convenience store where Nick Frost, Danny Butterman, is looking at a Super Cop 3, the Jackie Chan movie, and he throws it in the back in the bargain bin.
Yeah.
And it's right next to a copy of Shaun of the Dead. But it's called Zombies Party, which is what they called it in other countries.
Yeah.
But that's kind of really clever, I think.
Yeah, there's so much of that. One other thing I noticed, there's the one of the murders in this movie is this horrible actor who's insisted on casting himself in Romeo and Juliet and his mistress as Juliet. And the town council is mad because they have these actors who had bit parts in TV shows who could have starred in it. And then after these people are killed, there's a poster in the background in one scene of Romeo and Juliet starring those other actors.
He was an extra in Straw Dogs.
Yes, and she was on like CSI maybe?
Yeah.
Something like that.
And there was a lot of CSI type montagey stuff in here, but which I think that what I had read is they were referencing Tony Scott films with like, Man on Fire, stuff like that, the way he was doing stuff. There, and then of course the garden fences, that's the other callback to their own films.
Oh, right, to Shaun of the Dead, where they try to leap over the fences.
Yeah, and it's in reverse in this one. In Shaun of the Dead, Simon Pegg can't jump over it, and in this one, Nick Frost can't jump over it and looks back to the camera after he runs through it, just so he did it himself.
Yeah, but it's a funny bit, even if it's recycled. And I hadn't seen Shaun of the Dead in long enough that I didn't remember that from Shaun of the Dead, and I just thought it was a funny bit. And then later on, reading about it, realized that it was taken from there.
Well, I remembered it.
Good job. Great memory, Jason. All the performances we mentioned, Timothy Dalton is having so much fun, but Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, they're a great comedy team.
I agree. And, I'm sure we'll talk about their upcoming project in The Legacy, but I'm glad they're coming back together, baby.
Yeah. And like I said before, I feel like not only do they have great comedy chemistry, but the relationship that builds between those two characters does have some emotional resonance to it. I mean, this is not like a serious drama, but I thought I was invested, and I was warmed by their relationship building over the course of the movie, where they kind of come around to each other and support each other by the end. And Danny Butterman gets to have his big action movie fantasy, and Nicholas Angel finally has people on his side when everyone's kind of been against him the whole movie.
Yeah, those two should make a romantic comedy with them being interested in one another. I would watch that.
I would watch that too. Good. Yeah.
I think that would be, we've been friends all these years and we've been looking all over the place and it hasn't worked. We might as well see what's up here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But even this without the romance element. I like the idea that they took those romantic lines and recycled them for the friendship, and just friendship is kind of undervalued, and the idea that they could just hang out and watch action movies was really nice.
Yeah, friendship.
Nah, Jason hates friendship.
I don't hate friendship. You're my friend, Josh.
Am I?
Yes,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
are.
I am.
Dave,
We hang out and watch movies.
yeah, you're not invited, Dave.
I'm just sitting in the corner.
We just pay you for your services. Put the money on the dresser. It's there for you, Dave. We love you.
And we mentioned Olivia Colman is in this, although she has a fairly small part, but of course she's a huge deal now. And she's always good, even in that small part, as the lady cop who kind of minimizes her own contributions and jokes about her presence on the force, even though she eventually, she steps up at the end and does a great job when all the cops finally come around to supporting Nick Angel.
Yeah, the big other thing is all the fun action sequences. Act 3 is like a Tarantino wet dream type thing, right? Where it's just all action sequence. And like, first we'll shoot up the town square, and then we'll do a crazy car chase, and then we'll have a crazy supermarket battle. And, it was just one after the next. And it was like, man, this must have been really fun to shoot. So
Yeah. And I think as we said about it, could have been a little shorter.
Yeah.
All that action stuff is really well done. And obviously they had a lot of fun making it. But at a certain point, it's like, all right.
Did you have a favorite act of violence in this film?
I love the end when they're fighting in the tiny town, the model village, and Timothy Dalton gets impaled by the spire of the model church. And what I like about that is that's the kind of thing that I feel like you see in a lot of action movies. And it's like, oh, the bad guy's dead now. But of course, in this movie, he's not dead. It's just been impaled through his jaw. And he's like, I'm in a lot of pain here, guys. And I thought that was hilarious.
And what does he ask for to eat? Ice cream.
I mean,
They
is
love
that
ice cream.
not the best thing to eat if you're
I'm
in
just saying
pain?
they love ice cream. They make a lot of ice cream references.
Do you not love ice cream?
I like ice cream a lot.
Jason is opposed to ice cream and friendship.
Josh, just because we called you out on being smug earlier doesn't mean you have to take it out on me. I'm pro friendship and much more pro ice cream.
All right.
And honestly, I'd be friends with all types of ice cream flavors if I could be.
Yeah.
But I eat them and I don't think they appreciate them.
No.
Although that is their service to this world.
That was a weird tangent.
So 2 other good deaths or acts of violence. Messenger, the reporter. Did you notice all the people in town had like occupational last names as well?
I mean, I
Or
noticed that
action.
for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, Skinner is the name of the Timothy Dalton character, the
Yeah,
owner of the
right.
supermarket. I'm not sure how that fit. He didn't skin anyone.
No,
did he?
but I didn't say they made sense in what they did. I'm just saying they all had names like Cooper, Butcher, Staker.
Oh yeah, yeah, like
stuff like
names related to
jobs.
doing something. Yeah.
Yeah. So the real church giant. What did you call it?
It's steeple,
Was
right?
it a
Is that not
steeple?
what it is? It was a spire.
A
That's
spire,
what I called it.
think
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
Falls and just crushes his head in a very graphically.
Yeah. It basically
Good
explodes.
Yeah. So that was a good one. And I also liked in that big Act 3 sequence where they go into the pub and he shoots the ceiling and the bear trap comes down on the owner's head and just squishes it.
Yeah.
Those were excellent. All excellent.
Yeah. And I think it really balances where there's a lot of humor in what those action sequences contain, but they're also exciting and thrilling. And this movie really balances the humor and the action well, better than a lot of really big budget supposed action comedies do.
Yeah, like this is the quintessential popcorn movie. Movie you'd want to just go in and eat your fat tub of gooey popcorn and have all your snacks, maybe your jujubes or your gummy worms, or what is it you like, Josh? You like the snow caps? Maybe your
Snow caps are all right.
You're a Raisinets guy, maybe?
Raisinets. No.
Chocolate bars, yeah.
Sure, yeah, those are good. Junior mints, I do like junior mints.
You can take them all in there.
That's a lot of snacks.
Get your soda, you take your red vines and bite off the tips on each end and make a red vine straw. So you're drinking your soda through the straw there. And then you can take your chocolate and put it in the popcorn, get some different flavors, all while you're watching Hot Fuzz in the movie theater.
Yeah.
That's how I'm selling this movie.
That sounds like a good and stomach ache inducing experience.
I watched it at home and didn't eat anything.
Yeah. But it is that kind of movie. I think that they took a lot of lessons from those 183 or whatever action movies that they watched, and not just how to make fun of them, but how to recreate that stuff really effectively.
Yeah. So I saw some quote with Simon Pegg was like, the difference between us and other parodies is like, they're looking down at them and we're looking up to them. And
Right.
so.
Right. Yeah. They really take the attitude that the Danny Butterman character has, that he worships this stuff. And I think the way that that really is exemplified is the fact that one of the movies that Danny Butterman loves the most is Bad Boys 2, which is just a horrible movie.
What you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you?
Yeah.
That's a line from the song Bad Boys. I will not sing it.
Thank you.
I did see Bad Boys too. I didn't like it, but they like Point Break, and everyone loves Point Break.
That's true. Yeah, those are kind of the two main movies that that Danny Butterman really looks up to the most. But I mean, Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg would probably say that they do like Bad Boys 2 and they do like Michael Bay movies. But I think of all the action movies they could pick, the fact that they picked one that's kind of critically reviled shows how much affection they have for this genre, really, no matter what.
What's your favorite Michael Bay movie?
None of them.
Really? The Rock was good.
I mean, it's been a long time since I saw that. I definitely have not watched Michael Bay movies.
Got a favorite Michael Bay movie?
I mean, that's a good one. At the time, I haven't seen it in 10 years at least, but The Island I used to like.
Oh, I knew you were going to say something ridiculous like that. The Island's garbage.
Yeah. I
the
feel like
original Bad Boys was good.
No.
At least I didn't say The Island.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, no, I mean, I dislike Michael Bay greatly. So
I'm aware, Josh.
Yeah. I'm not the only one. I think that was my point, is that Michael Bay movies, as opposed to, he could have been obsessed with Die Hard, which is a movie that's beloved by audiences and critics. But this is the equivalent of him being obsessed with Die Hard 4 or something like that.
Yeah. Well, wait. Oh, yeah. That was the one with Justin Long. Probably.
I don't know. I was just picking a crap.
You want to hear my Michael Bay story?
Okay.
Michael Bay. So, a friend of mine is a producer and worked for him for a long time. And we were at a rap party and Michael Bay was there. And I asked him, I said, so Michael Bay, I got a question for you. In The Rock, when Sean Connery escapes The Rock, he says, they're sneaking back in and there's like fire and like a blade that comes down. He's like, I had to memorize the timing to escape The Rock, the prison. So I had to miss the fire and the blade. But then he sneaks back in and then he just opens a door for the rest of the crew. And why didn't he just open the door when he was escaping, Michael Bay?
Did you really ask him this?
Yeah. And he said, yeah, you aren't supposed to notice that. And then he walked away.
Yeah, I feel like as much as I dislike Michael Bay, that was the exact correct response to that query at a rap party for some other thing.
It wasn't for a Michael Bay rap. I think it was for
right. Even worse, he's not there to like engage in critical commentary on his movies. He's just trying to drink some booze and eat some hors d'oeuvres and hang out with his friends.
You, Josh, who always proclaims that he's a movie critic. Josh,
I don't randomly criticize people at parties.
I didn't criticize. I asked him, why didn't he just do that? If that's how easy it is.
That's really criticism. I feel like that's the essence of it. You are analyzing an element of this movie and asking why it was done that way.
The moral is don't invite Jason to your rap party.
Yeah, I mean, at least not if you're Michael Bay.
That is fair. Also, I feel like I'm being ganged up on right now by the two of you. And you're taking Michael Bay's side, even though he made the movie. Bay's side.
I'm not saying that your criticism is invalid. I'm just saying it was the wrong venue for it.
But where else am I going to talk to Michael Bay?
You're going to not talk to Michael Bay. That's the point.
I think I might have said hi to him once or twice after that.
Yeah. Where were we?
We're talking
Jesus
about
Christ. We really got off track.
We're talking about the film
what would you say to Edgar Wright if you saw him at a rap party?
I'd say I really like all of your films. I mean, I wouldn't say I don't like. I would say hi.
All right. You've learned your lesson. That's the right thing. He's a better filmmaker than Michael Bay. Yes,
sure.
Of course.
I'm not saying I go to rap parties to insult directors. I'm just saying I thought this was a valid question. Also, I was probably like in my mid-20s and might have been kind of an asshole. That
was my point. Is that
I probably wouldn't say it now.
That's good. So you've matured.
Yeah.
Michael Bay has not
matured.
Definitely has not. Yeah. So really, maybe you do come out ahead other than the fact that Michael Bay has millions of dollars,
But-
and we have a podcast.
Yeah. Does billions of dollars buy you happiness, Josh?
I mean, maybe.
That's remains to be seen.
So Hot Fuzz. What else did we like about this movie?
Yeah, no, everything. The NWA.
Is that the name for the neighborhood watch?
Yeah.
Named after the wrestling promotion?
No, named after NWA, the band, the seminal rap group.
Yes,
who
I know
sang
that.
Fuck
I
the
just was going to
Police.
give you an opening to talk about wrestling again.
Josh.
Isn't that a wrestling thing?
It is, but it has nothing to do with this film. Can you please stay on task here?
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, they were funny. And I do love the reveal where it's this kind of double reveal in the movie where Nick Angel does all this investigation and he figures out how all the murder victims are connected through Timothy Dalton's character. And he gives that long Agatha Christie style, as one of these reviews mentioned, speech about solving it. And not only does the villain, of course, tell him that he's wrong, which you assume, well, of course, obviously he's going to deny it, but it turns out that he is in fact wrong, as we learn in the later explanation, where all of these people have just been killed for these incredibly petty reasons related to making the village look bad.
Yeah, they're all bad. Like you said, the actors are killed because they're bad actors.
Right. And the flower shop owner who might move away and bring her flower making, arranging skills to another village.
She's so good at it that only they could have it.
Yeah, exactly.
That was true. And then there's the next swerve, which is you think, well, Butterman, stabs him. But if you remember, he did put that pocket protector.
Right. There is a moment there where you might kind of wonder, is he in on it too?
Yeah, I don't know. Most of that stuff, like I'd be like, this shouldn't work, but it does work. So
yeah, I think it does. And I think there's a lot of stuff where if this was played straight, if it was made by a filmmaker with a different kind of sensibility, like Michael Bay, for example, it wouldn't work. It would just be a dumb action movie, but it has that perfect balance. Like I was laughing throughout this movie. It's very funny. But I was also like into all the action stuff.
Yeah. There's one line where he said, when they're all in the bar and he goes, everyone and their mother is packing in town,
right.
You see that guy over there, he's packing. He goes, who else is packing? He goes, his mother.
Right. Yes. Yeah. There's very cleverly written.
Yeah.
By
good movie.
Yes. Agreed.
Better than every Michael Bay movie.
Yes. Thank you.
Agreed.
Absolutely. Much better. And better than well, I don't know. It's been a while.
No,
should we say is this the best movie of the trilogy?
I think Shaun of the Dead's the best of the trilogy.
Yeah. I would be inclined to say that as well, but it's been so long since I saw that I'm not sure. I remember watching this movie and liking it, but being a little let down based on how much I had liked Shaun of the Dead. But coming back to it now, I was like, this is a really good movie.
I felt the exact same way. I like it better on this viewing. And I would rank the trilogy in that order: Shaun, this, and then World's End. But I would like to watch that again too to see how I feel about it now.
Right. I remember that one being even more overlong. I don't know if it's the same length as this movie, but I remember it feeling kind of drawn out.
But speaking of cult classics, my favorite Edgar Wright film is Scott Pilgrim versus the World. That's an amazing movie.
Yeah, I agree. I love that movie. And I think we'd been talking about if we did a best of the decade retrospective at some point, that would be way up there on my list of the best movies of the tens.
Yeah. How do you feel in the Edgar Wright canon? How does your order go, Dave?
I actually would put Hot Fuzz at the top, but I mean, just by a narrow margin, Shaun of the Dead is so freaking good too.
Yeah.
I actually saw the three of them when The World's End came out. I went to a trilogy screening at
awesome.
Village Square. It was awesome.
You didn't drive to another state.
No, I didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
By the way, one other scene, I don't know how to describe this, so I just brought it up to show you guys, but this scene is one of the funniest things from this movie.
The two Andys who just like constantly just don't want to do police work.
Yeah.
Are so smarmy.
And they just slide off screen.
Yeah.
Like, it's so funny.
Paddy Considine is a great actor.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, they're both really good. And I liked, again, that even though they torment him, Nick Angel, and they torment Danny Butterman too the whole time, and even Olivia Colman as the girl police woman kind of dismisses them. At the end, when they realize what's going on and there is injustice, they all come around to his side.
Yeah, they do, and they do police work.
They do, yeah.
Hey, one cool story that I read about Timothy Dalton on this is when they were doing like the first scene where the two of them meet in the supermarket in his manager's office, like the first standoff scene between the two of them. It was set up so they would shoot it 2 days, So the first day it was set up so they'll shoot all of Timothy Dalton's, dialogue on camera. And the second day they would shoot all of Simon Pegg. So they reversed everything. So none of them thought Timothy Dalton was going to show up the second day because he wasn't supposed to, because he wasn't on camera at all. But he just showed up just so he could give the readings, to act with his acting partner, which is very awesome and unselfish. And a lot of actors don't do that. If they're not on camera, they'll like phone it in or not even show up or like be eating. I've heard, of a very famous actress who used to eat when she was off camera and everything. So I thought that was just awesome. Kudos to you, Sir Timothy Dalton.
Yeah, like you said, he's clearly having a really good time and was probably very appreciative of getting a role like this after being James Bond, where a lot of those actors, they get typecast and they don't get. I feel like it's kind of like what Daniel Craig has gotten recently in like Logan Lucky and Knives Out, where he gets to subvert that James Bond image and do something wacky.
Yeah, well, and Craig, purposely did that, maybe because he saw other James Bond not get the roles. But Dalton did say that Act 3, I think that whole chase sequence was like the most fun he's ever had shooting anything. So.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that. So do we want to give this a rating out of cornettos? I guess that seems appropriate.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give it 3.5 cornettos, and I'll give it 1 strawberry. I'll give it 2 original, or 1.5 blue, the original, and I'll give it 1 mint chocolate chip. So 3.5.
I'm not going to break it down like that because that seems excessive, but I will agree and give it 3.5. I think the only real big flaw is that it is a little too long and it does drag in spots.
Yeah, I think if they cut it 15 minutes, it would get an extra half a cornetto from me.
Yeah, so. I think so too. So we'll come back in a moment and talk some more about the legacy of Hot Fuzz. Welcome back to Awesome Movie Year. In this episode of our season on the films of 2007, we're talking about the future cult classic, Edgar Wright's Hot Fuzz. And obviously, given our designation, a big legacy of this movie is that it is in fact a cult classic.
Yes.
Yes, I'm glad you agree. We have managed to sustain the premise of this episode.
Yes, it is a cult classic, so it fits the necessary parameters to be in the cult classic episode.
Excellent. Glad to hear it. But I mean, I think that means it gets things like revivals and, like Dave was saying, going to see the marathon of the whole Cornetto trilogy when the other one came out. And it's certainly built in reputation over time, even as we were saying, like among ourselves, that we liked it more watching it again.
Yeah, I think so. And then you see movies like 21 Jump Street and stuff like that. And you're like, man, they definitely watched Hot Fuzz when they were prepping this thing. So, we already mentioned The World's End. They're the third of this trilogy, but I would love to see all three of them work together again.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, I have really enjoyed stuff that Edgar Wright has done without these guys. I mean, we were talking about Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which I just think is a great movie and is probably my favorite of his films.
Yeah.
I liked Baby Driver a lot. I'm guessing you didn't.
I didn't. I just thought it was, like I said, all style and no substance, but I'd be willing to watch it again to see if, somehow I was mistaken, which is very rare.
No, you're never wrong, even when talking to Michael Bay.
I was right about the point I was making.
You were.
God, are you like Michael Bay's manager or something over there?
No.
Man, I didn't expect you of all people to.
I'm not defending his filmmaking. I'm defending party etiquette.
Yes, of all people, you the maestro of parties. Yeah,
I am.
So.
No, I like Baby Driver. I think you're not wrong that it is a lot of style and not as much substance. I felt like it had enough substance, and that in a way, like Hot Fuzz, that the style and the substance work together, and that because the way that it's constructed gives you something about the characters, and that in Hot Fuzz, where you maybe didn't feel like the character development was all that important, I thought that all of that stuff went hand in hand here, and that it kind of does in Baby Driver also.
Yeah, it worked for me here, and it didn't work for me in Baby Driver.
Right. And then His next film, which is a psychological thriller called Last Night in Soho that comes out in September 2020.
Yeah.
I'm down for that. Sounds
Right.
different from anything else he's done, and I'm all for it.
He's got another one wrapped too, doesn't he?
Does he?
I think so, Dave.
That
you
was
wanna
the only
look
one
up?
that I had seen
Yeah.
that is wrapped and supposed to come out in September.
And the boys are getting back together.
Are they? I think I had missed it. What are they doing together?
They're doing a TV show called Truth Seekers, aren't they? Where they're
I-
both like kind of paranormal ghost hunters.
Is this a scripted show?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really funny, like 8-10 episode or whatever it is. Maybe 20 episodes. I don't know.
However many they want. No, that's great. I think they definitely should team up again. And especially because what they've done kind of individually away from each other and away from Edgar Wright has really not been all that good.
I mean, you made fun of Fighting with My Family, but other than Star Trek, has either of them been in a better movie than Fighting with My Family?
Well, Simon Pegg is also in the Mission Impossible movies, which are also,
great.
you love those movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, other than Last Night in Soho, he doesn't have another project for sure coming. He's attached to like 7 things though.
Yeah, I mean, he's always working on. So he spent all those years working on the Ant-Man movie that, of course, he didn't end up directing.
Yeah, well, and then that turned out to be great. So it's not really a bummer.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bummer in the sense that, like, I'm sure it would have been great if he had done it, but I wonder if it would have worked the way that they wanted it. Obviously, to make it a Marvel movie, they had to go in a different direction.
Auteur is not welcome.
Definitely not. But Peyton Reed did a good job with what he was given, and then went on and made a sequel that was also
They're
good.
both very good.
Yeah.
I like those films
Yeah.
quite a bit. Yeah.
I do too. But yeah, seeing Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, you look through their filmography and it's a lot of these, especially Simon Pegg, these like obscure comedies that are very poorly reviewed and were barely released. And then a Mission Impossible movie and a Star Trek movie and then a bunch of obscure things.
Where he's one of the leads, but he's more of a supporting player. What was that one? Wasn't he like in the romance? There was like How to Tell a Guy.
Oh, how to lose friends and alienate people. Is that the one you're thinking of? That is really bad.
Yeah, I know, because that was such a big book or something. And it was like a bidding war and the whole thing, but that did not do well.
No, it did not. And the one other team up between the two of them that I can think of is Paul, the alien comedy.
Right.
Were you a fan of that one?
I never saw it.
It's all right. It definitely doesn't capture the magic that I think people were hoping for to see them team up again. And Simon Pegg, I believe, wrote or co-wrote that one. And it's got them plus Seth Rogen. I mean, it's like a comedy all-star team, and it's just okay.
Yeah. No, I didn't see that. I didn't see Run Fat Boy Run. There's
I think I did see that.
A lot of these films I haven't seen with these gents in it besides these cornettos.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot that I haven't seen as well. I did see How to Lose Friends and Alienate People, but if you look at that list of their filmographies, there's tons of movies that I barely even heard of. And that's what they're doing.
So our homework assignment is to watch Spaced.
Definitely watch Spaced.
Rewatch The World's End and get excited for Truth Seekers.
Yeah. And that student film, what was it called again?
Yeah, that's called Dark Right, which the whole point of these things are, and they said it when they named Hot Fuzz, was to put 2 words together that don't really make sense.
Right.
You know?
Because it just sounds like a generic action movie
Yeah,
title.
I said
like Die Hard.
Right.
Like,
It's Dead Right. Sorry.
Dead Right. Yeah. I think with Space too, and one of the things that I noted down as the legacy is that because this movie and the Cornetto trilogy as a whole were pretty popular in the US, that American viewers who maybe hadn't seen Spaced and hadn't seen the early stuff that these guys did then went back and watched those. And I think there's a much bigger cult following for Spaced in the US now than there was.
How do viewers in the US watch Spaced, Josh?
I assume it's on some sort of streaming service, but I don't know for sure.
Dave, can you look that up for us?
Or they watch it in some other questionably
I
authorized manner.
If these 3, and I think they will at some point, get back together again, like it would be a big deal.
It would. I wonder if they do Spaced the movie.
It's on Hulu and it's on Tubi.
All right.
All
so
right.
it's very, Tubi is free. So anyone can watch it.
Everybody.
All right. So we're going to watch Spaced and report back on that
We can report back
someday.
on that at some
Yeah.
point.
Why not? Why
Yeah.
not? So any other legacy thoughts on Hot Fuzz?
No, I do think though it definitely helped, like kind of with these like action buddy comedies, like reignite the genre. This one did it so well, and now we're getting lesser returns on them. But of course, it's 12 years later. But this is just a good film.
It is a good film, yeah. And I can see how emulating this, if you're not as talented as Edgar Wright, would not go well.
Yeah, it must be nice to be like a filmmaker, like, and you make a movie for $6 million, like Shaun of the Dead, and then you make 30 million back, and they're like, just go do whatever you want. You know,
Yeah.
does that exist anymore? I wonder.
I mean, I'm sure it does in certain places, but I think the other thing is that a lot of times when that happens, you hear the stories of that being a disaster, and not everyone is
Right.
Edgar Wright, and he's able to he was given that freedom, and he turned in a great movie that a lot of people really liked.
Did you notice who the music supervisor, what his name was?
I did not.
Dave, you know it?
Mm-mm.
Nick Angel.
Oh, did they name him? Did they name the character after him?
No,
No, it's just a coincidence.
They named the music supervisor after the character.
Oh, so there was no music.
No, there is.
supervisor.
There is.
Oh,
No,
okay.
that's
I
true.
know it could be. It could be a pseudonym like the Coen brothers.
No,
use.
it is named after Nick Angel, the music supervisor.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good like super cop name though, Nick Angel.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So in conclusion, Hot Fuzz, good movie.
Good movie, cult
Yes.
classic, worthy. We like it better than some of the other cult classics we've done. What was the other? Cemetery Man.
Yeah.
This is better than
This
that.
is better. It's very different from Cemetery Man. It's got a different audience. But I think, as I said in our Cemetery Man episode, I'm sure that Edgar Wright has seen and liked that movie and that it was an influence on Shaun of the Dead. So
Yeah,
it all comes together, man.
man, it all does come together, Josh.
So that's Hot Fuzz. And that's this episode of Awesome Movie Year. Check us out on the social media.
You know, Josh, we are on the social media, and I was listening back to an episode, and you chastised me for rushing through the social media, which I'll
Yeah.
never do
No,
again.
you shouldn't do that.
No, I won't. We are on Facebook and Instagram at Awesome Movie Year. We are on Twitter at Awesome Movie Pod, and you can find us on the web at awesomemovieyear.com.
You're doing some ASMR there? Is that what's happening?
I myself am Jason Harris Comedy on Facebook and Instagram. You can find me on Twitter at jharriscomedy or on the web at goforjason.com.
I'm at joshbellhateseverything.com, at Signal Bleed on Twitter, and at Josh Bell Hates Everything on Facebook. And our producer, David Rosen, has his great podcast, Piecing It Together.
Which just did its first live podcast, which you were a part of.
I was indeed, although when this episode comes out, it'll have been a long time ago.
But there goes the magic. How many people were in the crowd for that?
Oh, so many.
Millions. We could add them in by the time this airs. We could add them in post-op. But yeah, no, Piecing It Together, you can find wherever you listen to this podcast and on piecingpod.com, at piecingpod on the social medias, and check out the Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces Facebook group.
Yeah. You know, and speaking of these live podcasts, maybe that's a service we can offer. We'll come to your party and do a live Awesome Movie Year podcast.
Especially, we could come to your rap party and do a podcast about how your movie sucks.
Just show us the dailies
Yes.
and we'll tell you what's wrong with it.
What do we have next time, Jason?
Well, Josh, as you know, in our season finales, we like to give the power to the audience, power to the people. That's what we're all about here at Awesome Movie Year. So this year's audience choice poll was all about another comedy filmmaker. Judd Apatow exploded, not literally in 2007, but he had a monster year as a director and a producer. So we thought this is the year of Apatow. Let's let the audience choose one of his 3 films for us to talk about in the audience choice episode. And the winner was a movie I personally love. Spoiler alert. Superbad, which I still think resonates today, which Apatow produced and helped really launch Jonah Hill and Michael Cera into the comedy stratospheres, if you will. A buddy high school movie where they're going to the party that I still think is emulated very often.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, there was stuff recently that took a lot from Superbad, and we can talk more about that in our next episode. It'll be our second Michael Cera movie of this season.
Can't get enough of him, baby.
He's great. So tune in next time for Superbad. Thanks for listening to Awesome Movie Year.
Thank you for listening to Awesome Movie Year. Make sure to follow Awesome Movie Year on Facebook, at Awesome Movie Pod on Twitter, and at Awesome Movie Year on Instagram. And if you like the show, review us and rate us with 5 stars on Apple Podcasts.
And all points west.